David Rivley, The Logic.
Thank you. My question is directed to Minister McGuinty. Many elements of the border package announced before Christmas depended on either legislative changes or appropriations from Parliament. In a best case, you could get those starting the end of March, and maybe not then. What more in the package can you do without parliamentary approval, and what's going to have to wait?
Our view is that the current circumstances in the House do not affect the implementation of the new border plan. We're moving forward. We're working with our departments. We're working with our agencies. They have assured us that we have the resources to implement this plan. They're reorienting in terms of their own internal priorities to meet the objectives of the plan. After all, what's the use of having a border plan if you don't implement it? Which is exactly what we're doing. If additional legislative measures are required, here's an idea. Why don't all political parties put the partisanship aside and come together and help us pass the legislation that we might need to strengthen this relationship? The thing about the border is it's not partisan. We don't intend to make it partisan. We're not making it partisan. We're going to give credit where credit is due. For example, if a province is moving forward in a positive way, that's a good thing. You know, a lot of people in Canada right now are very concerned. A lot of businesses are very concerned. I've had calls from business owners who have said to me, I'm worried about putting 10 families out of business, 10 families off my payroll. So our serious obligation here is to come together as a House, if we have to, and pass the legislation we may need, because the border is not partisan. There's a lot at stake.
We'll go to Rafi Boudjikadjian, CBC.
Morning, thank you. My question is for both ministers. You both mentioned the importance of lack of partisanship when tackling the border issue. This morning, Jagmeet Singh has written a letter to Prime Minister Trudeau asking for all federal opposition leaders to be included in the kinds of meetings that are happening today, for example, with the premiers and the Prime Minister. Do you agree that federal opposition leaders should be part of these tables?
Okay. I may have a different view than David on partisanship. I'm not foreign to it myself at times, but I do subscribe to the fact there is a greater purpose here in making sure that we are acting as one. We might not always be on the same wavelength, and that includes with the leader of the NDP, leader of the Bloc, or the leader of the Conservative Party. I think the message we need to provide to the Americans is that we're ready to dig in for 4 years. And there's an easy way and there's a hard way to do it, but we're ready for both. Whether a particular member of a party is entitled to be part of the meeting with premiers, I don't think so, frankly, but it's really up to the prerogative of the Prime Minister. You're a Prime Minister for a reason, and you're a Premier of a province for a reason, and people expect you to be that. They voted for you to be in that position. It doesn't necessarily always mean bringing every single person to the meeting, but those people are certainly entitled to be briefed at times, and the views of Jagmeet Singh, some of them at times have been valid, so important to listen to that as well. But should he come to every meeting? Absolutely not.
I'm convening a call almost immediately after this press conference with my colleagues who are critics for public safety to have this very discussion. I'm interested in sourcing the best ideas I can source. I think we should all be interested in getting the best ideas we can source. I think we should be looking for common ground. I've been really, really fortunate because for almost the last 8 years, I've worked with colleagues from all sides of the House in both chambers on national security and intelligence issues. I can tell you in 8 years and 15 foundation reviews, we never had to hold a single vote. Because if you have an ability of purpose and you keep focused on Canadians' interests, you can find a pathway. I think this really calls on us right now to really come together. There's a lot at stake here. As I mentioned, a lot of families right now are worried about their jobs. A lot of investors are asking questions. Transfer pricing experts are spending their time advising their clients on how easy it is to move into upper American border states, move their operations. That's not good for Canada. That's not good for our people. So if leaders of the opposition have constructive ideas to be considered to implement to improve the situation, I think we're all open to hearing. I don't know if that requires a formal structure. I haven't seen the note. I'll look at it. And I'm sure the Prime Minister will bring the same approach today. He's a very, very conciliatory person. He understands the seriousness of this moment for Canada, and he's fully seized with it.
Jim Brunskill, Canadian Press.
Minister McGuinty, earlier you said you were not interested in drama. Could you please elaborate on what you mean there?
I think it's important to stay focused on meaningful investments of money and time to improve the situation. And personally, my priority as the Minister of Public Safety is not to participate in dialogue which is not going to help us implement change and improvement. I'll leave that to others, but I think our political leaders in Canada now understand, and I hope they will deal with this even more forthrightly today at the First Minister's meeting, that there's a lot at risk here. And Canadians need to know that we're working on this together, and we are. That the federal government is exercising its responsibilities, and it is. And that the help we're getting from provinces and other actors, and we are, is helpful and important. That's what I mean by drama is not necessarily helpful for us. Making comments that are intemperate are not helpful for us. We need to stay focused, laser focused, on implementing the changes, reaching out to the folks we need to reach out to in order to be able to manage. Life is about relationship management, isn't it? And Canada's number one relationship, in my view, is the United States. And we need to focus very much on that. And I think we need to do that seriously and methodically and respectfully with a new government that's been duly elected, legitimate. And we have to manage our way forward. And I think that's what is best for Canadians right now. Certainly the approach to the Public Safety Department, and I know Minister Miller's approach is the same. That's what matters.
I can be a bit intemperate.
You can be a little intemperate, and I'll leave that to you. But I just think Canadians right now are counting on us to work on this for them. And I don't know if they appreciate comments that aren't helpful.
Quick question is Mercedes Stevenson, Global News.
Of course.
It's me, so you may regret this. Thanks so much for being so patient and taking all of our questions. I have two, one for Minister McGuinty and one for Minister Miller. Minister McGuinty, you mentioned passing the legislation that would back the money for this. It is your Prime Minister who prorogued Parliament. We all know there's likely to be an election before there's a chance to pass any of this legislation. Can you speak at all to any reassurances to the Canadian people that this money is still going to flow for the promises that have been made, or is it tied up to that specific piece of legislation? And if you could kind of outline what that process might look like to ensure the funds are still available to security agencies.
What I've assured myself of since arriving only 3 weeks ago is that the current circumstances around prorogation will not affect the implementation of our border plan. Been reassured repeatedly by departments and agencies that reallocations are taking place, folks are being deployed. We have the resources to implement the plan. There may be some additional legislative measures that would be helpful and required. And again, I think it's important for all of us to down the partisanship. And if we have to come together in order to pass legislation to be able to deal with this really important situation, I think people of good faith and goodwill can do that. It's true we prorogue Parliament. It's true that we're holding a leadership convention. But this is a mature democracy, and we can do both. We can deal with this, and the Government of Canada is seized with this right now, and we are seized with this, and the Canada-U.S. Committee of Cabinet is seized with this. So, hope for me springs eternal. If we have to come back together, I think people of goodwill and good faith should be able to do that. Because right now, I don't think it's as much about our partisan gain as it is about 41 million people who are quite worried. And if we put that in the window and on our dashboard, if that's our purpose, I'm convinced we can come together, pass the legislation that we need, and if we need to move further on monies, I think we can do that as well. This is just one of those moments where it's too important not to. So I remain hopeful. We'll see what happens this afternoon with the First Ministers. The Prime Minister is working very hard on this to be able to gain the trust and support. And so it's still an open question.